What's up, everybody? My name is Clint, also known as the Boy Stitcher here on YouTube and on Instagram, and thanks for joining me back for Chapter 2 of the Catch Me Quilt. Today we're going to go over this pattern piece, how I made it, and the big mistake I made and how I fixed it. So thanks for joining me. All right, so like I said, we're going to be working on Chapter 2 of the Catch Me Quilt today. If you watched my first video, you'll probably notice a big difference between that one and this one. I've really tried to improve my production value here with a new backdrop, some cool lighting, a better microphone so you can hear me better. So hopefully all these things will add to the video and just make it a little bit more interesting or appeasing to watch. So like I said, we're going to be working on Chapter 2, which is this right here, mainly this piece right here. And I'll walk you through a lot of what I did to get all my points matched up, the mistake that I made and how I fixed it, etc. But we're going to be working on this piece right here. So let me get this into the camera. And we're going to be working on this checkerboard piece right there. And then this squiggle line and that squiggle line. And then there's some background pattern pieces that we're going to be working on today. Okay, so I did make a big mistake, and let me just show you where I did it on this one. So basically, as I was just piecing these things together, just minding my own business, I started attaching the three strips together, and you'll see this in a bit, but basically, I accidentally put the colors on the wrong side. So this green was down there, that yellow was up here, and it really didn't create that nice little gradation of color down here. So I had to get a little creative on how I went through and fixed that. I used a lot of Scotch tape, so heads up. But this really came out really well, I think, and I think my corners all lined up really nicely and things like that. There are some different techniques outside of just regular old foundation paper piecing on this chapter, mainly using freezer paper to cut templates. So this is one of the templates, and on the back I just have all my background pieces attached. But the idea behind using freezer paper is that it's a reusable template. So if you need to cut multiple things or multiple items of the same thing, then the freezer paper makes it a lot easier to use. It just irons on and has a temporary adhesive, so it's really, really nice. So I am going to be talking you through how I lined up all of my points. I'm going to get this closer so you can see it. All my points there lined up, super happy with all of that. I'm going to walk you through how I did that. It does take a little bit of extra time, but I think it's worth it in the end. Just because I'm already spending a lot of time on this, so I want to make sure all my points are as precise as I possibly can be. So I will be using my stripology ruler for this chapter. You don't have to use a stripology ruler, but in this chapter you have to make a lot of 2x2 squares. And the stripology ruler really helped me speed those things along, especially when I was doing the white with silver star background fabric over here. Those were 88 pieces of 2x2 squares. So the stripology ruler made that go by in minutes as opposed to possibly the hour, 2 hours that it would take for me to cut those out. And in the very last section, there's just some normal old foundation paper piecing that we'll be doing, putting these together. So I'll quickly go over that and what I did there. Not a lot to it. It's normal old foundation paper piecing. I just want to take a quick moment to thank everybody for liking and commenting on my last video. Some really great and encouraging words there. I did get some questions that I want to go over really quick, just to make sure that I'm being as clear as possible. So I mentioned in the first video that I'm going to the master class. I just want to clarify that this is not a pattern solely for that master class. You can go buy this pattern anywhere, your local quilt shop, etc. And they'll have all the things you need there. In a lot of cases, they might even have it, to where you can get it kitted up. But if not, there is a fabric guide at the back of the pattern, and it walks you through all the different fabrics, what yardage, she uses to create this pattern. So you can use something from your stash if you want to, if you already have some nice solids that you want to use. From what I've been told, the masterclass is really going to be focused on how you put all the chapters together and connect them to make a really nice finished quilt. There's a lot of points and star points to line up and things that you don't want to lose. And that's really what the class is going to be focused on, is the tips and techniques on how you get those to really line up perfectly and match perfectly. So while you don't need to be at the class to finish this quilt, all the instructions are in the quilt booklet already. This is just something I'm doing on top of it to really help me in developing my skills. And then the last thing I want to mention is that you really don't need a lot of extra things to do this pattern outside of your normal quilting rulers that you use. So you've got your normal rotary color, your normal ruler that you use to measure and cut fabric. On top of that, really the only thing that I use in addition is going to be the add a quarter ruler. I do recommend you go get this. It has, I mentioned a little bit in my first video, but it has a lip on the back of it here that butts up against your fold in the foundation paper and gives you a perfect quarter of an inch every time. The other thing that you'll use is freezer paper, but you can go buy that at any grocery store that you want. Anything else that I use on top of those are just purely for speed or convenience. So you'll see me use some other tools, but it's really not necessary for finishing this quilt. So um, just wanted to make sure that I responded to all those questions that I'd gotten from my previous video. If you've got more questions, please drop them here so I can go in and take a look at them and respond to you, or include it in my next video. If you're new to my channel, I'm actually going through the Catch Me Quilt chapter by chapter. I have chapter 1 already in my channel. The link for that is down and going to be in the description box. So you're picking up on chapter 2, but thank you for being here. If you've not already, please like the video. Please subscribe to my channel so you can get notifications when I am updating more videos and posting more content. Just a quick disclaimer, I am not a certified instructor. I am merely an enthusiast who wanted to share my progress through this quilt, what the challenges are that I face and how I overcome them, and then any little tips and tricks that I've picked up along the way. So without further ado, let's get going.
All right, so I decided to give the stripology ruler a go. Basically, this ruler has a bunch of different slots in it, every half inch this way. So you can really get some good cuts going here. Um, so yeah, that is about what this is. It should make the making the squares pretty easy. I was only able to get 5 in here, so I'm gonna have to do this about 4 times, 5 times, I think, to get all of them done. I don't know if it's really gonna be that much of a time saver for me, but we're gonna give it a go. So basically, I've lined them up. I used my cutting mat, the rulers on my cutting mat to just line up my strips to make sure they're all good. Then I'm just gonna put my rotor cutter in there to line it up. So now I have a good, nice clean edge right here. And then I'm going to do my 2 by 2 squares. The other thing that's going to be interesting is after, like, there's like fabric 1 down here. So this is fabric 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fabric 1 only needs 3 of them, but fabric 2 needs 5. So instead of wasting this fabric, I'll probably just pull that fabric out on the side to remove it and then focus on these. So as I get to the needed number, I'll pull the fabric out. So let's get going. All right, the moment of truth. Pulling them out to the side really worked well. We'll see how this worked for me. All right, look at that. That's nice. Nice and easy. definitely made this go a lot quicker. This bottom one, I think it was just a little bit too far into the bottom, so I'm just going to clean this up real quick. Cause me any issues. All right, so that is how I'm going to use my stripology ruler to cut out all these squares. The other thing I'll need to do is get some of the white fabric with silver stars, because I'm going to need a certain amount. Looks like I need 88 squares of those, so this thing is going to come in handy for me for that for sure. All right, so I've cut out all these squares as well as the 88 squares of the white star fabric. I used the stripology ruler. I don't know how quick it made me on the actual colors. I was a little bit faster, not by much, but definitely was much faster on cutting out the 88 white um, diamond or star fabric. That went super quick. Probably would have taken me closer to an hour to cut 88, and it took me literally maybe 2 minutes. So definitely saved time there. So now we're going to do the stacking. The interesting thing about here is it's not going to be 4 different piles. It's going to be 24 different piles because that's how many things of checkerboard I have to go through. So I'm going to speed it up. I'm going to get everything together. We'll have 24 piles at the end, and we'll be ready to go.
Okay, so I made a mistake. I figured I would show you what's going on here. So basically what happened is I sewed all of my little squares on the opposite direction. Did not realize that I had already trimmed it, and the way I realized it was I had all of these lined up, since I was about to trim this very last one. And all of a sudden I realized that my yellow in this center strip was way up here. So it was like this, basically. So it kind of went opposite of what it should have been. And I guess I just got my stack mixed up for some reason. So what my plan is, we'll see if this works. If not, I have a backup plan that I can do. But I think this will work. Is because it's all perforated right there, and I'd already cut out all the seam allowance and everything, I'm worried about this not holding its structure if I try and sew directly on this again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Scotch tape and see if I can get this to just tape it down and then sew through the Scotch tape, obviously. So we will see how this works. I might do it on both sides, but this will also cause me to need to recut some of those squares since they've all been trimmed down. We'll see. I think this will work though. Okay. Delicately try and I might get my seam zipper. See if I can get that underneath there. All right, I don't think I need anything on the back. I think it's perfectly fine just like it is. So I am going to now cut, I need to cut, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the white star fabric, and then one of each of these colors. So I'm going to do that really quick and get back on track with this. All right. So I know these are fabric 27. Let's see if I can get myself back in order here. I think that's the correct gradation. That looks right to me. Maybe this goes here. Let's see. Let's go look at our here. So I know that's number 1 up there. I know this is number 24 here. And then this one just has a little bit more yellow to it, I think. So it goes like that. I think that's going to be good enough for me. I'm seeing more yellow in this one than I am in this one, and that's what we're going to do. So it's going to go 22, 23, 24, 25 is going to be what we're using. And we'll restack them. So foundation point 1 is right there, so we're going to put down. Foundation point 2 is there. And that's the first fabric, so that's going to go there. Then back to our white star. Then fabric 24. White star. Fabric 23. Oh, y'all, I'm struggling. Which one do you think? They look so similar to me. Let's do this. Let's look at this one. So I think this one has 22 and 23 on it. I mean, in the grand scheme, they're so close. It probably will not even matter. This, I think, is just a little bit darker than this one. So I'm going to go with this one, this, and then this one, this. Okay, let's just double check and make sure I didn't do something crazy really quick. All right, so foundation point 1, fabric 27. Foundation point 2, fabric number 1. Foundation point number 3, fabric 27. Foundation point number 4 is fabric 24. Foundation point 5 is fabric 27. Foundation point 6, fabric number 23. Foundation point 7 is fabric 27. Foundation point 8 is fabric 22. And foundation point 9 is 27. So this is the new stack. We're going to start down here and go that way now. So I'm going to go ahead and... well, this is probably what got me all... okay, I'm doing it right. So I'm going to start up here. And I'm just going to double check my fabric numbers match up this time. So I don't have to undo this again. Because I don't know if my foundation paper would be able to handle another rip out. So I'm going to do that really quick and I'll come back. Okay, so I redid it. You see here's my lovely one with all the tape on it. That's going to come through really well or not. But just take my word for it. Lots of tape on here. And it worked out perfectly fine. So good tip if you accidentally make a mistake and it's on a thin strip like this and it's a lot of different... if it's the whole foundation paper that you've messed up on, like I did, just use some tape to reinforce the paper again, and it'll be fine to use. Now, I've gone ahead and trimmed them down, so they will line up like this, and this makes a lot more sense than what it was doing before. And then there is one marking that I added right here. The pattern has these little stars that you just mark right there. It is a water soluble pen, so not worried about that blue going staying on there. It'll wash off, and most likely that's going to be in the seam allowance anyway, so hardly visible. But the other cool thing that she's done is you start from different parts of this foundation paper. So if I turn this over and you can see, these two are where you start here and you build them both this way. This one you start here and you build it that way. And that's probably what messed me up on this one, to be honest with you. But when you do that and you're pressing your seams that way or this way, you're going to create what's called a nesting seam. So I don't know if you can see it, but the seam right there, you can see there's just a little bit of a lip right there in that one, lip there. All those lips are kind of on the same side. And then this one next to it, the lips are going that way. So it creates a nice little nesting for you. So when you flip them over to sew them together, they will actually nest together right there. And I don't know if you can see that, but if you just kind of move them directly in front of or next to each other and kind of really butt them up next to each other, they will nest, and that will give you a perfect join where it looks like a checkered board. Now, the other thing, and this is highly debated, I think, amongst people who do foundation paper piecing, I don't like to piece these together with the foundation papers on. Foundation papers are literally just there to guide you how to build the piece. When you're putting the pieces together, you don't really need them, in my opinion. So usually I'll take them off and just rip them off, and I'll show you how easy it is. You just take it, and I'll start with foundation point 1 up here, usually, or it doesn't matter. Sometimes I'll start down here, especially if that one's been glued, and it's hard to kind of get it separated. There you go, like that. And then I just fold the paper back, like that. And then, like I said, 1.5 stitch length really makes it to where the paper is perforated, and you just rip it like that, and it is done. And you see that for all of them. and they come off really easy. This can be very therapeutic, honestly. If you've had a bad day, just get in there and rip some paper. It makes life a lot better when you can just rip things up. So, the other thing you'll want to do on these is to make sure you notate the number that it is in the seam allowance. So I'll just take, you can use your water erasable pen. I have a air soluble pen as well. It's purple. It'll go away just a little bit quicker. So water's the only thing that'll erase this blue mark. That's why I used it on this one, because I need to refer to that probably in 3 or 4 months from now. But an air soluble one, it'll go away just on its own based on just being out in the air. So what I'll do is I'll just take it, and then you have some seam allowance here at the bottom because that is outlined right there. So I'm just going to write in C18-1 right there, and then we'll be good to go. That way, if I get mixed up, like it's not like I already have with this pattern, this piece, I've got a note that I can refer back to. So I'm gonna go ahead and rip the papers off of this one, and then I will put these together, and then I will rip the papers off of this one and attach it to those. I like to do it one at a time just so I don't lose track of where I'm at and what I've got going on with this. So I'm gonna do that really quick, and I will come back and show you my progress. Okay, so I got them all lined up, nested the seams. I added pins in here just to really hold it in place. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to baste it first with a longer stitch length, and then double check and make sure that I'm happy with all my points, that everything lines up, the corners are good. That way, if I don't really like where it's at, I can rip them out and do it again, instead of trying to rip tiny little stitches out to redo it and possibly tear up my fabric. Basting is just going to be a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I've got it set on a stitch length of 3. The other thing I like to use is my seam ripper here. It's a good tool just to keep if you need to stabilize something and make sure it feeds through correctly. So here's my 1/4 inch foot, 1/4 inch marking right here. I like to have multiple ways of how I line it all up. Get that in there right where it needs to be. Go ahead and drop my needle down. I like the placement. Good. So we're going to start basting. And you can see I'm just sewing right over my pins. There's large enough stitch lengths where it's not going to really bug me. I am going very slow to make sure I don't hit a pin, because I have gone fast before and broke a needle and about gave myself a heart attack when that happens. So here's a great example of where I like to use my seam ripper. I just like to make sure everything's lined up. As I'm getting towards the end, you'll always get these little, I don't know, for me at least, it always gets like a little fishtail. It just kind of, something goes askew down here. So I like to make sure that I'm keeping everything lined up, and we're going the right way here. All right, so let's take the pins out. You can see how well those points lined up. I am pretty happy with that. Again, the nesting seams helps, the pinning helps. Anything you can do to give yourself a break and make this go, make it kind of line up perfectly, that's the best. I know basting seems frustrating. It seems like you're adding a lot of time. For a quilt like this, though, I think it just makes sense because this is not a quilt that you're going to make in one day. This is a quilt that's going to take some time, and you're investing in this quilt, really showing off your craftsmanship or really trying to hone your skills. So take the extra time and baste it. That way, when it's done, you are really happy with your finished product. Now, here's the other thing I'll say. You do you. There is no such thing as the police. This is just how I do it myself and kind of my thought process. So if you are great already at matching up seams and points, by all means, do what works for you. This is what works for me. This is kind of my tried and true method. And I'm just sharing what works for me. I am by no means the master of how you should sew. That's such an art form, and there's so many things you can do differently to get the same results or better. So there's not a right way or a wrong way, in my opinion. As long as it works and you're happy with it, go for it. One thing I forgot to do is backs tack at the beginning, so I might go back and get that squared away just to make sure that these don't have any issues coming undone. So I'm just going to do that one more time just to make sure it's secure. Again, this might be overdoing it. It's not a big deal, but I'm such a perfectionist sometimes that I've just got to do it. All right. And let's take a look here. And that looks pretty good. I am really happy with that. I think the combination of the Acorn Easy Press Pin, nesting the seams, and then basting them, really what makes this come together really nicely. So I think the instructions say to press the seam open and not to one side. So I'm going to press the seam open. I'll probably add a little bit more of that Acorn Easy Press Pin just to get it nice and flat. And then I'll add the third one on the side, and this little section will be done. All right, and there is the finished unit. So pressed all my seams open. I use the Acorn Easy Press Pin. If you don't have this and you're doing really any type of piecing, this thing is fantastic. I cannot say how amazed I am by it. I don't think I really went into much of it last time, but basically it's got a screw top, so you just unscrew back here. You fill it up with your starch. I'm just using the Easy Press liquid that comes with it. And then refill it up, and then it's good to go. So this thing lasts a good bit on a refill, so I've not had any issues with it. The other nice thing is, if you do get some like extra on there, it'll go away. Not anything to really worry about. The other thing you can do, if you want, and if you just want to be extra like I am, you can use a clapper and put a clapper right there. And basically, the clapper is just to set the seam down. So you just take this, it keeps the seam really flat. You know, if you're going to use the starch, it's just a piece of wood, not much to it, but it makes the seam nice and flat. You can see all my points. For the most part, I am very happy with how they all lined up. I think if I got really close, I might see some spaces, but really, when you're standing far back, even a foot, you don't see that. And there's going to be so much else going on. I am not worried about this. I am actually very, very happy with how this turned out. That's that unit. I'm going to get working on the other ones, and I will show you the finished product. Okay, let's talk about templates and freezer paper. So, um, you'll want to use some type of freezer paper. I try and get the largest, the widest one I can, just because it makes life a little bit easier when you're trying to cut out these big templates. But it's regular old freezer paper. When it comes to you, it'll have a dull side, is what you're looking at, and a shiny side. You want to make sure that you're working from the dull side. And basically what that means is once we cut out our templates, we're going to lay this shiny side down on top of the fabric and iron the whole thing onto the fabric. And the freezer paper, the shiny side, actually has like a little temporary adhesive that it will adhere to the fabric, and that way you can cut out your templates and reuse the templates. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Pretty straightforward, but in order to do this, I just cut a piece of freezer paper. Doesn't have to be any type of shape, but you can see I just have kind of a rough edge down here. And I've cut out my 3 templates that I'm going to use for this. This is basically what's going to happen is one of these is going to go over here, and I think one of these goes somewhere else, or it might go down somewhere down here, or something like that. So, but we'll be using these templates 4 times, and so you're going to want to be able to reuse them. So to do that, you just need some glue, regular old purple, or whatever glue you have, honestly, but I like to use the glue sticks. That seems to work better. And some scissors, and we'll get going. So the first thing you do is you're just going to glue down this template paper, or this newspaper print, right onto, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but you're going to be doing it right onto the freezer paper. Just like that. And now it is on there. It's good to go. So I'm going to do it with both the other ones, and then we'll get working on cutting them out. There's that one. This one. And if you don't have some type of glue stick in your foundation paper piecing toolkit, I highly recommend it. It definitely comes in handy. I keep a glue stick in my bag that I keep together with all the stuff. So sometimes it'll come up like that. You're just going to come back and kind of zhuzh it, make sure it's got plenty of adherence. You don't want this coming up on you and separating. So I'll just go back in. And basically what this is doing, it's giving this newspaper print a little bit more of some body. So when you're going through and cutting out templates, you're not going to rip your templates. So I'm just going to roughly cut these out. And then I'm going to start working on getting these cut a little bit neater and closer to the pattern. So you'll want to cut right on. You see, I gave myself a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. I gave myself a little bit of an edge around the template, just so I had plenty of room. And I generally do that when I'm cutting out my foundation papers. I will give myself a little bit of an edge right outside the seam allowance, just to make sure if there's any issues with, you know, my cutting or measuring or something like that, it gives me some wiggle room. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut these out and we'll get going. And there is your very first template. Shiny side on the bottom. You got a perfect template now to cut your strips of fabric, the sashing that's going to go around on the outside of this. So I'm going to do that for the other 2, and I'll come back whenever I finish those 2. Okay, so I have cut out these templates, with the shiny side on the bottom, top side's glued down to the top. I'm going to come back to this piece because what you're going to be doing here is going to be very similar to this piece. This has some lines that you'll want to make sure you're going on the straight grain of the fabric. So you'll want to make sure that this is perpendicular to the grain of the fabric. And if you don't know about the grain of the fabric, every piece of fabric has threads that go this way and then threads that go this way. And so you want to make sure that those line up with these arrows just like that. It's to make sure that you don't have your fabric kind of going this way and it's got all these bias edges and it makes it a lot more stretchy and things like that. So we're going to start with this piece right here. Now it's a little confusing and I think I figured it out, but basically you've got these templates and I've cut out some of these strips according to the pattern. And so what I think she's wanting us to do is to lay this on top of that to get a nice size template. And I'll probably just, in order to save myself some cuts, I'll probably just scoot it right on down there and get that lined up down there and cut out that piece. And then that creates the paper piece for this section right here, I'm guessing, because I will start with, this has number 1 and fabric number 7. So I'll start with that, just like I've been normally doing with paper piecing, and then attach this longer piece that I'm about to cut out here to that one. I think that's what she's going to ask us to do, or she's wanting us to do here. So I'm going to do that and we'll see. If it doesn't work out, I will figure it out as I go. But, so I've got my strip of fabric here. I've got this piece, and this is really where the cool part comes in. You take your iron, and because it's all lined up down there, it's the right width and everything, I just come through and I iron it down to the fabric. And now that is all one combined piece, just like that. So pretty cool to see how that works. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my fabric scissors and I'm going to trim right up on that piece. Making sure I get the curve just right. So now all you can really see is the template, and this is really where the cool part comes in. So when you're done and you want to reuse the template, you just pull that off and that piece is ready to reuse again, and you've got this one ready to go. Okay, change of plans, I think. I'm not super convinced that I need to use this template again for this. I'm wondering if I can just use, I don't know. Because I think I'll need to just trim this down, this piece down, to the size that she gave us. I didn't really follow that, to be quite honest with you, in the instructions. I had some extra strips left over from a previous section, and I just cut them from that. So I'm wondering if I should cut these exactly how she asked me to, which would make sense if I'm following the instructions. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and, I don't know what this is for then in the instructions. All right, we're going to give it a go. We're going to see what's going on with it and see, maybe I just did it wrong. So we're just going to try one, put that one together and see how it comes out. And if it comes out poorly, then we have learned our lesson and we'll figure it out from there. So let's get going on that. Okay, so I think I understand now why we might not be doing foundation paper piecing. And if you look from this side, it's just coming out a little wonky. See down here, the striped fabric seems diagonal. I don't know if you can really tell, but you can see it's a little diagonal there. And I just don't love, it's kind of like going that way, and so you see it's coming off and it's not working as well. So I'm going to unpick this. The good thing is I think it's perfectly salvageable. There's plenty of room on here to get the full template on there. So I'm not losing any sleep over that. And I think I should be perfectly fine with that, the fabric 14, the purple fabric. So I'm going to unpick this and do it a different way, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I think I'm liking this much better. The lines are coming out a little bit straighter. What I am doing though is I am pressing this out like it is on the foundation paper, with the seam allowance facing that way. I'm not sure if that's going to cause any problems or not, so we'll see. I'm probably going to try and put one of these together before I go any further, just to make sure that I'm not doing something crazy. But basically, I'm going to get this squared away, and we'll move on from there. One thing I am doing is I've discovered that each one of these stripes is 1/4 of an inch wide. So I'm doing my best to line up my foundation paper right on one of those stripes. That way when I go and piece it, it's not like it's cutting a stripe down. I don't know if that's really going to have a big impact or not, but in my head it does. So that is what I'm trying to do here with the rest of these templates. Okay, so I've cut out all my templates. I went ahead and did this. One thing to keep in note is I would recommend just keeping this template just in case something happens. I'm just going to put it in my baggie with the rest of my pieces here. I'm just going to throw this right in there. I'm not going to have any, I might not have any other use for it, but in case something comes up and I need to get this again, I'm not going to throw it away. So throw it in here, and if I'm done with the quilt or I'm done with all the piecing and I don't need it, then I'll throw it away. But for now, I've got it just in case. Okay, I think I figured it out. So I had to mess around with it a little bit, and I'll show you what I did here in a bit, but this is what it's going to look like when all these pieces are done. So that's the template part we cut at this top, the beginning. Our first 2 sashings, those checkerboard areas that we were just working on, and then 2 more sashes down here. So when you're cutting out your templates, I did not cut them correctly, or I did something wrong. Basically, I was having 2 of these match up, and when you're going and you're trying to get it on both these edges and have the curve come through like that, they need to be going opposite of each other. So that's what I figured out. The piece with the little cornerstone on here, that has to be a mirror image of your normal template that you cut out. So same with this one on the larger side. I haven't cut this one yet, but this is kind of what I did. I took my template that has kind of the freezer paper template, and I put it on the wrong side of the fabric. So that's the actual right side right there, and I ironed the template on the wrong side. And basically, I'm just going to go in and get these pieces cut out. And it rips off like this. And then you can kind of see it's a mirror image of this one right here. So when you're doing this section, just make sure that these have mirrors, because that will cause you a lot of problems if you don't. Okay, so let's talk through how I'm going to put this piece together. So those go on at the end. Basically, you have your template piece. This is the piece that we were working on, or we cut out at the beginning, our freezer paper. This piece is going to go here, about like that. So that's step 1. Step 2 is you're going to add this piece on right here. Get yourself a nice little cornerstone. Step 3, you're going to put this small checkerboard piece down here. that. And then step 4, I'm going to put the larger checkerboard, and it'll all match up. I'll walk you through, but that's step 4. And then you'll put this larger one on down here at the bottom, the one without the cornerstone, and the last thing you'll do is put the one with the cornerstone on, and that will give you a nice curve. So that's what it's going to look like, or that's how you build this block. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces on this little block here. The good news is it seems like this has been the hardest part so far that I've experienced on this quilt. And after this section, it's just normal old foundation paper piecing, which will be nice to kind of get back in the swing of that. But I'm gonna start working on putting this together, and I'll be right back. Okay, and the instructions call for this first seam that you're gonna press it open. I'm just gonna get in here, open up that seam, finger press it a little bit. Use my easy press pen, get in there. All right, so there's step number 1. Now for step number 2, what I want to make sure is that this line matches up exactly with that right there. You want to make sure that those seams intersect really nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the basing technique that I talked a little bit earlier and base this down first to make sure that the points line up. And then if I like that, I'll go back and stitch it down. I'm probably going to do that with every part of all the other pieces that go on to this, just because there's a lot of checkerboards that I want to make sure lined up, and I don't want to get in a spot where I sewed it too quickly and then don't like it, and then I have to come back and unpick really small stitches versus doing it basting it to make sure I really like it, and then I come back and stitch it down. So just making sure those seams line up perfectly. I'll pin it down, I'll baste it, and we'll go from there. Okay, so that's what I mean about getting your corner lined up perfectly. I don't know if you can see it, but that is almost a perfect match there. And I'm glad I basted it, because what I would do is I'll pin this all down. There's not much to do on here, but I want to make sure this seam is lined up. So I'll put a pin here, the pin here to around that outline of that seam right there. And I'll baste it down to about there, cut my thread, pull it out, and make sure that I like that. And if I like that where it's placed, I'll fold it back over, and I'll just do a normal size stitch down the entire thing to put it all together. That way you're not basting this whole thing when you really don't need to base down here. But I'm glad I do that, because the first time I did this one, my blue was just a smidge over too far and didn't give me that perfect point there. So I was able to quickly undo it and reattach it with minimal effort there. The other thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to trim down any excess fabric to give myself a nice corner there so it doesn't throw me off when I'm attaching my checkerboard. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I think I told you wrong beginning here. Not to confuse you any more than I already have, right? But when you're putting things on, you're going to always start from this side. So you're going to put this small one on first, and then this one with the cornerstone. Now we're going to put the smaller checkerboard on first, right there, and that's going to make sure the curve lines up correctly. And then we'll put the large checkerboard over here. I think before I had that maybe turned around and go in the opposite direction. Or are those two pieces flipped? And then the last part is we're going to put this small one on over on this side first, and then come back and finish it off with this side. So that's kind of how it'll look. So just remember, you're always going to start from your right side, building it up. So short and then a longer one, short and then a longer one, short and then a longer one over here. And Just want to make sure that everything is lining up really well. Now here, there's not going to be any points to match up really on this piece, but when I get, so I'll just want to make sure that my seam is a really sharp, precise 1/4 inch. Now this one does have things that I'll need to match up, so I need to make sure that these points match up, then this point matches up with that. So that's going to be this part right here is what I'll spend some time basting to make sure it comes out right. So, but that is the second part here. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this piece to this piece. Okay, so now I'm working on this last little checkerboard piece. So like I said, I've got to match up this corner, that corner, and this corner. So I'm going to spend some time really focusing on making sure this pins down correctly. Now, because of how I sewed this one, where all these striped ones with the cornerstone, I made sure that I pressed the seam allowance into the long stripy section and not into the small cornerstone part. That helped give me a little lip there. So I'm gonna go in to add this piece. I'll make sure this one is really lined up, and then I'm gonna really pin these 3. And then I'm gonna go through and baste about right here, take it out, check it, make sure I like it. If I like it, good, I'll go about and sew it down. But if I don't like it, I'll undo the basting and do it again. So step 1 here, gonna make sure that these 2 seams marry really well right there. Getting those nice and pinned. That's the first one. And then I'm just gonna go through and check these other seams. Like this one seems like it's gonna be far off. So I might have a little bit of finagling to do here, and that's okay. All right, so you can kind of see I've got a little bit of extra fabric or fullness right down in here, which that's okay. What I'm going to do is probably put it through the machine with that part facing down, and then have those bottom feed dogs see if they can help me in getting that. It might not come out perfect. I might have to finesse it a little bit, but that's we're gonna give it a go. So again, we're gonna start about here and base down this way and pull those out and see how I like it. Okay, so this is the product of my basting. So you can see there, you got a little bit of fullness there. I'm not super worried about that. I think a little bit of starch and it'll come out in the quilting. So, but you see how nicely those seams are just butting up like right there and how they're all matching up. Just think on this like diamond checkerboard area, it's gonna be so noticeable if it's not. So I'm happy with that. I'm gonna go ahead and stitch this whole thing down, making sure to back tack at both ends, and then we'll come back and press it out. Okay, so here is the finished piece. You can see here all the points are matching up in here. You can't really tell where it's joined, which is the point of this part. And there's 4 of these, so here's another one, and I've got 2 others. So this is the hardest part of this chapter, I think. This is a pretty involved part, and for some reason it just kind of gave me a little bit of fits, but nothing awful. I just had to go back and undo some things, fix some mistakes, which wasn't terrible, but slow and steady, you can definitely do it. The last little part of this chapter are just some regular old foundation paper piecing, so I'm not going to go through how I did that because I went over how I do it in the first chapter. So I'm going to finish up this and then we will officially be done with chapter 2. All right, so all the foundation paper piecing is done. It wasn't that bad, to be honest with you. It was these 4 connector areas and then kind of these 4, I don't know what you'd call these, like snakes almost. Just as some flying geese. So really cool, different variations of the how we use the fabric, which is always nice. So yeah, love it. And then I also went ahead and cut out all my templates. So I did not connect most of them. This is the only one I connected, and this actually goes right here. It's going to go like this basically when it's all said and done. Now, I went ahead and connected these two just because that was the next step in the instructions, but it says to leave about a 1/4 of an inch undone up here for the Y seam. So this is going to be a Y seam for this to go right down in here. All the other background pieces are the templates pieces I just cut out and I've marked up, but I've not connected them yet just because I don't want to get too far out of the order of operations here. But that is it. We are done with chapter 2, which means we are a third of the way through of the Catch Me Quilt. So thank you for coming along with me on this one, and we'll be ready to go on to chapter 3. Okay, so that wraps up chapter 2. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm really loving putting this quilt together. I find it very relaxing, and it's just challenging enough to where I'm having to develop my skills, but it's not unachievable. So if you're on the fence of wanting to do this pattern, I highly recommend it. While the pattern might be very intricate and detailed, it really is just regular old foundation paper piecing. So if you feel comfortable with foundation paper piecing, you'd probably really enjoy this quilt. Before I wrap up, I just want to take a moment to say how thankful I am that you're here. Putting a first video out is pretty intimidating, I'm not going to lie. But your kind words and your comments really helped encourage me. This community is all about our creativity and celebrating what we bring and put out into the world. So thank you for being here, for stitching along with me, for being a part of my colorful little corner of YouTube. I really can't wait to show you what's next and keep on growing this. If you've not watched chapter 1 yet, the link to that video is going to be in the description for you to go back and watch that video. The next video, we're going to be working on chapter 3, which is all about star points. The fun thing she says at the very beginning of chapter 3 is, it might look bad, but it's not. So we'll see how that turns out for us as we get along. So thanks for being here again. Love to have you being a part of this journey. Please like and subscribe. And if you've got any questions, comments, or things that you'd like to see, please drop them into the comments section. And with that, I'm going to wrap up. I will see y'all next time. Thanks for being here with me.